Oh, I so wish I had been encouraged to play. Let's write that in capital letters in red. Play. Just play. Watercolor is a perfect medium for that, and experimenting and letting the medium have a voice in our work.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Mastrius for this sneak peek with artist and mentor Kathleen Conover, who will be discussing experimental starts for watercolor paintings without using a paintbrush. At Mastrius, you get personal feedback, teaching, advice, and support from a master artist of your choice, so you can reach your goals at your style in your own pace. I'm your host, Marcia Korsbelt, and I'm thrilled today to introduce Mastrius mentor Kathleen Conover. Master artist Kathleen Conover exhibits her work, curates exhibitions, gives demonstrations, and teaches in-depth workshops, receiving national and international recognition for the vision, innovative techniques, and fearless expression that give rise to her unique designs. Painting with openness to her subject matter, she is guided by intense observation and deep personal reflection. The result is a rich, symbolic layers of literal and figurative design. Kathleen's current involvement in the growing international watercolor scene includes invitations to exhibit, judge, and demonstrate in China, Turkey, France, Belgium, Thailand, and Greece. She has been honored as one of 40 international master watercolors invited to exhibit at the first watercolor exclusive museum in Qingdao, China, the birthplace of watercolor. Global travel continues to influence her award-winning paintings and inspires her work towards her lifetime pursuit to be a better painter.
Enjoying the video? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when new Mastrius videos are added.
I'm really excited to dive in. Kathleen, the floor is yours.
Hello. I am so excited to be a part of Mastrius. It just sounds perfect for all artists at all levels. I want to be a student as well as a mentor. This is my first session with Mastrius, so I'm excited to share with you some of my excitement about watercolor, mixed water media, I often call it, because I will use acrylics when I need to, but watercolor seems to be my love, my main love. And I've chosen this field after being in a lot of other art areas, sculpture, metal, I've got a printmaking degree, textiles, but watercolor has a life of its own. And my big goal is to encourage that life, not to kill it, which is so easy in watercolor, because if we do too much planning right from the beginning, it tends to tighten us up. Plus, it's not fun. So I love to just experiment with what the tools will give me, in this case, today's session, what paint, water, and paper can do for me. So I'm going to show you some of the starts, the textural starts that I like to play with, which basically is just color and texture. And from that, at a whole other time, then I put my thinking cap on and I really evaluate what the starts look like, what they are, what I might do with them later. But that's a whole other head game. And right now, all we want to do is play. We want to experiment, play, open the doors of possibilities. So I will start with the basic, and that is gravity. When we are working, I've got something. Okay, when we're working with pigment, paints, water on paper, don't forget gravity. Gravity is a great resource for us. So that's my for gravity. Here is, pun intended, here is gravity, of course, on a diagonal direction, which I personally, in my designing, like diagonals. Their motion, and I have a lot of motion in my work. So that one is shows the reminder of this diagonal gravity, letting the paints dry just with a diagonal pull. Another thing, don't forget about water, is when you have this wet pigment and you splash water in there, you get all kinds of interesting little things. So this one, obviously, you can see I've got it propped up like this. It is, I've got this underneath flow going, but then I have to put it on the flat, and then I can splash my water in so that those end up with little round things. Otherwise, they go down, which is fine too. It's just another way. So one of the things I do, especially in my classes, we start off with whoops, where's my little piece? Here it is. We start off with plastic wrap, and there's so much you can do with it. So some of these pieces end up almost finished when you pull the plastic wrap off. So the trick is, I've got a wet piece of paper. I have plastic wrap on there. I have my pigment all mixed up, and then I run that water down, or the pigment down, into the paper. So the saran wrap is in this shape, all of this. And when you use that plastic, you see what you're going to get. You can direct the wrinkles in that plastic so you can get the pigment to flow where you want it to flow. So I feed that pigment in from the sides. I let it run into the middle, and then can prop it different ways, again, to let gravity help me. This is all very smooth because the plastic is not there. So it automatically gives me a landscape appearance to start with. This was very cheap plastic wrap, like from the dollar store. The different plastics give you something different. This one is more like the thicker saran wrap we might use in the kitchen. But you can see the little shapes in here. The cells are a little bit larger. And again, you can see where the plastic was and where it wasn't. So as I feed that color in, it's going to be very smooth, non-textured up in this area, which often will translate into sky, maybe trees, but that's for a later time. And there's a third example here of thicker plastic. This is like some of the plastic that we use in disposable tablecloths, or maybe a shower curtain. If I have a big full sheet of paper, I'll often use the old shower curtain plastic for getting these big cells, these big shapes, which I just love. There's something very natural, certainly very organic about these shapes that I found as a very beginning artist. I could work with them. I could not seem to make these shapes on my own, but I had the judgment to be able to work with them. So it's a great way to start, and it's still a great way that I will finish pieces. In this one, it's almost finished in that I can see marking out a mountain range in the back, leaving all of this white and just defining my sky area with a faint coloration. I wouldn't want it dark to conflict with all the activity down here, but maybe one of these middle value colors in what would be the sky. Another tool I use a lot is wax paper, pretty much in the same way. I wet the paper, I put my wax paper down, and I bleed in the color. Wax paper is very, you can manipulate it. I can cut shapes out of it. In this case, which sometimes will look like birch trees or rocks again, this was wax paper that was very erratically rolled, folded, torn in a asymmetrical shape, laid down on wet paper. Color was bled in from up here and let it run. And it's so exciting to watch it because you can see what you're getting and you can kind of push it around a bit and direct it. So I can attach it to one area, but I want it developed unevenly for the way I like to finish my pieces. Here is another one. Now, usually I'm starting them like this. I think of the sky and the rocks, but this one I actually finished in a very abstracted way that looks like the shoreline rocks to me. So most of it was done. I came in with a white pen this time and made the abstracted designerly patterns of water flow and the water hitting up against those rocks and in the little waterfall areas.
Beautiful. Now, that one was done with wax paper as well?
Yes, that was. Yep.
Wow.
Thanks for asking. So that it's clear. This is one that you can see from the first one I showed you with the thin plastic. Same colors. This was done at the same time. This one is both. It has wax paper in here, torn shapes which were torn like this. And if you're going to tear or cut shapes, keep in mind that general design concept of variety. Give me large, medium, and small. So I had those different size shapes in here of wax paper, and then I put big sheet of plastic on top of it, so all the rest of it had the potential for a little bit of texture, and then again bled the color in from the sides and kind of controlled it where I wanted things to go. There's actually a tiny piece of wax paper right there. Came right off of that little section. And that's what it looks like when it's on there. And then you take it off, and it's so fun. It's like Christmas time. Yeah, it's fun. So I think it's finished. I have a design problem here, and I need to incorporate. I've got darks here. I've got this really heavy dark here. So as an artist, I have to make up my mind. Do I want your attention back here? Do I want your attention up here? But because my whites are here, I think the attention is going to go here. So I need to either incorporate this dark, bring it in the piece, or I need to crop it. Let's see if I can find a clean something to crop. That's pretty clean. I can crop it, get rid of that dark, and then the piece starts to hold together a little bit better.
Absolutely.
Okay, here's another fun one everybody asks about. This is gauze. So if you go into the pharmacy sections of the stores and you look for it, but it has to be cotton gauze. It can't be any of these fancy self-adhesive, stick to yourself polyester. It has to be the pure cotton gauze or cheesecloth. Cheesecloth works. And you sit there with your fingers and you open this stuff up so you get what looks like this webbing. Wet the paper, put this down, and then start putting your color on top. You really have to saturate the string because the string will either work as a resist because it's absorbing that color, or it will work as a depository because it's so saturated, it will collect it and deposit it there. So there's the opportunity to start two pieces. The first one, put down the dry gauze, cheesecloth, and paint your painting. Take that off. On the next one, start with a wet piece and put the saturated cheesecloth down and get more of this effect where the netting is a positive against the lighter background. And as I have to remind all of my class students, save the whites. Don't have so much fun that you end up covering the whole piece with with color, which is often a mistake I've made. That's why I can suggest don't do that. Don't do what I've done. All right. Now,
Yeah, I see what you mean, that you wouldn't be able to get these effects simply with brush. You couldn't.
right. I can't paint that. I can't take my paintbrush and paint that. Right. This is an easy one. So there are so many beautiful commercial stencils out there. And if you have some you absolutely love, just plain get a piece of paper that is completely wet, put your color on it. Always choose colors you love. It becomes something that, I think I'll put the light up there. It becomes something that you want to work in. If it's colors you don't like, it's a lost cause right from the get-go. So use colors that you really like. Cover it with paint that you like. And I can see that I've got it in just kind of modeled areas. It's interesting, just the paint. Put your stencil in there. While it's there, these little areas were picked up with a dry, I'll use napkins or paper towels. I'll pick up some of that color. I certainly could have done it more. I kind of wish I had. Pick up the color within the stenciled areas. Let that stencil dry on that piece of paper. Then when it's completely dry, then you can pull the stencil off. It's just an interesting background, very much like the organic textures. This becomes a more mechanical texture. And I will paint things right on top, just using it as a very neutralized but interesting background. Or sometimes I will use this as my designing and decide where am I going to put my darks, where are my lightest lights going to go, and let that be what I'm developing my painting around. Let me backtrack a little bit to the saran, the plastic wraps and wax paper. Let them dry thoroughly before you remove it. So I say, let the stuff sit there overnight and the angels will come and visit. And then in the morning, you get to unwrap the Christmas presents.
Excellent. I love that.
This is fun. If you're at camp or at the beach, or you bring home a bucket of sand from the beach, this was a piece, I think because of the memories, I am so fond of it, I just don't want to do anything with it. I was in Iceland at the time, and we were using the sand up there. But I've done this before on full sheets of paper, and I have developed them into beautiful topographical paintings that look like land that you're seeing from the airplane. But the idea is that you're putting the sand on, and where it's thick, it becomes a resist. Where it's thin, it collects the pigment, your watercolor, in a textural way.
Wow.
So you put that sand on, and then you pour your paints in there. And again, I don't know what I'm getting because I can't see what's going on under the sand. But I move that paint around. It's very fluid. The paper was wet when I put the sand on there. Sometimes if I'm at home, I can squirt that sand and squirt it away in areas that become interesting, and I can see that pattern before I even pour the pigment. But where you are down to thin sand or bare paper, of course, it will grab the pigment the most. Where you have thick sand, it will be a resist. It's just another fun way to start.
Yes. And that would be the same as you wait until it's dry and let the angels kiss it overnight. I love that saying.
That's let the angels kiss it. Yes. And then sometimes I have to take my credit card and scratch the rest of the sand off because the pigment will hang on to it. So then there's an area of monoprinting, which I do love, where you paint on a slick surface. It can be your Formica kitchen counter. It can be a piece of plastic. It can be gel plates. I took an old scratch piece of plexiglass and scratched it more with fine sandpaper. But to paint on that surface, take a dampened piece of paper and lay it down and do a rubbing, you get an unusual texture. Now, this had a bit of paper, I think, put on there because I was painting the trees and all that stuff, and that little resist was there. So that is just a monoprint, which gives you, again, textures that are out of my hand's control. And often in our paintings, that's what we're looking for. We want that little bit of magic that we don't know how the artist got it, and we don't know how. We can't do it with our hand. Only nature can do that for us. Now, the same approach on different papers will give you different things. This is on Yupo. Yupo is not paper, it's plastic. YPO. And if you haven't played with it, it's an interesting thing. So you can take 2 pieces of Yupo, wet. You get your colors running in between. And you can see it gets messy on both sides. But as you monoprint it this way, you pull them off. Now, obviously, these 2 did not come off the same piece because you would get something very similar of those 2 pieces. But these were monoprinted, and you get such interesting textures.
Oh, yeah.
And this is, again, Yupo. So the paper that you use, the amount of water to pigment that you use, the tilt, the gravity pull that you let it be under, all of that, it makes a difference, and you get such different results. This one is so moody. I just love it. Haven't done a thing with it. It's been sitting here for probably 10, 15 years.
You'll get to it.
Oh, maybe. Sometimes I just look at them and love them so much. This one, even as I move it, you see this gold glow? I don't use metallic paints. I don't know how that came about, but at this late date, I wouldn't be able to duplicate it. I have no idea where that came from. But that's the cool thing that experimenting gives you. It's just wonderful. Here was one more fun technique that was kind of crazy, where we wrinkled up tin foil, painted it all over with black gesso. It's a form of monoprinting. Lay it down. Sometimes you can, while it's laid down, you also can make marks in the background, and then those lines will come through more. Let that dry, and then play with it. So that started with a start just like this. You can see that underneath texture. It's not the finished painting, but it gives me something to play with. So that is my big encouragement. That's my examples for playing and experimenting.
Amazing. It's fascinating.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. So I do have one quick question for you before I let you go. What would be a piece of advice or encouragement that you give an artist that you wish you had heard when you were starting out?
Oh, I so wish I had been encouraged to play. Let's write that in capital letters in red. Play. Just play. Watercolor is a perfect medium for that, and experimenting and letting the medium have a voice in our work. So we've chosen for a reason. It has a spirit. Let it shine.
Yeah, we don't hear that often enough. Just play. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry. And thanks everyone for watching. If you'd like to learn more about Mastrius, check us out at mastrius.com. Everything we do is live, interactive, and online. So you can get your questions answered in real time and learn exactly what you need to reach your goals, whatever they are. I'm a member at Mastrius, and I absolutely love it because I'm learning and growing my skills fast. And the community is so supportive and welcoming. I hope you'll join us. Find out more at mastrius.com.